Going over my FreeCAD document here. This is this is a mess is what it is. Now, when you go into FreeCAD, you're going to have all these shapes, but let me see if I can, this is kind of like a finished concept. Your FreeCAD's going to look a little different. This is kind of a customized version with certain add-ons you can see I have. I make multiple copies as I go, and I'll explain that in a second. I want to make this as brief as possible. There's nothing that I can do to say, hey, this is how I do it, and just do this, copy this. You have to learn how to use your program, whatever you're going to use. If you're like an artist and you like CAD style stuff, but the CAD is a little too much for you, there is plasticity. A lot of people like that. And like I said, there's Blender and there's so many options. So go and check out, you know, what's out there. Go look at some videos. But in CAD, this is how I went about it. I knew that I needed a shape. All great things start out very simple. I played around with the front end first and then the back end. I kind of really don't understand how I'm going to do it. I just like start doing it, you know? That's how I work. I can't plan it out. If I plan it out, it's not going to happen because I get frustrated. Then I added, you know, this angle here, and then I added the belt loop. It's as easy as that. When you're going to do something that's symmetrical, it's really easy. You only have to do half of it, okay? That's my message to you, is do half of it, and then you mirror that in a mirrored image, and you'll have an exact symmetrical product. If you try to do it in any other way, it gets a little complicated and you end up doing a lot of unnecessary work. And that was my original first go at it. This isn't my first go, this document right here. This is probably like the third or fourth attempt. So this is what I did. I did half of it and then I started adding the block, okay? You can see the block on the side there. And then I added the pocket where I thought the smartphone could go. All right, I just sketched over top of it. See the sketch right there? I didn't even put constraints on it. I just attached it to the edge. There's something in the sketcher that you can use. Let me see if I can bring it up. In the sketcher, you can attach to edges. Right here, the external geometry option right here. And so I believe I used the edges and attached my sketch to these edges, and that's why it looks so perfect, but I didn't measure it. I didn't constrain it. I recommend you do, but just sometimes I just run with it, you know? If it looks good, it prints good, then I don't care. After that pocket was done, remember this is half. This is not the full length thing. It's gonna have more reflected on the other side. I don't need the whole block, and it'll look stupid if it's a block. In fact, I really wanted a round shape, but that's really annoying to print. Round things don't always print well, and you'll see that if you try to print cosplay helmets. When it gets towards the top, as it starts to round off, you'll get layers that kind of separate. And then they'll fill those in with, you know, Bondo or whatever that crap's called. And it kind of ruins your experience with 3D printing because you want it to just do the whole thing, do the concept, and it's done, right? And you want it to just be one material, okay? And so that was my goal, and that's why I decided to just make it kind of blocky. You can see it's not exactly, you know, a chameleon head per se, but it's kind of blocky. But when you're doing, you know, art and sculpture in general, you're just going for, you know, the idea of it. If people look at this, will they think that that kind of looks like a lizard? What do you mean it doesn't look like a lizard? Of course it does. So that's what I was going for, and I knew I could get away with it. And so I made this giant ass triangle like this, and I used the point on this corner here to lock in my sketch. I use that as a reference, okay? So actually, let me see if I can show this to you. If I double click on that sketch, there it goes, it opens it right back up. So there's the triangle, okay? This big ass triangle is what I used, okay? It didn't have to be this big. I mean, you can shrink it, but like I said, I was just running with it, you know? So this triangle, and I figured, you know, I don't want it at like a sharp angle at the bottom. I need a little bit of, you know, I need a little bit at the bottom that I can use, and I don't want super sharp edges because in 3D printing that tends to cause things to peel up when you have those sharp edges. They're really, really difficult to keep on the bed, on the build plate. Even when you have glue, stuff happens. Fight me. So I left that like that, and then I pocketed it. So you can see I do a lot of sketches, pads, and pockets. Those are my main tools in this program. So after the pocket, I had that sharp angle, and then I had, you know, a flat face there. I added the hole here, okay? But this is not just a hole. If you look carefully, you'll notice it's an oval shape, all right? And I needed that because if you look at the controller, that is an ellipsoid. It's an oval. It's a very tricky shape. So I had to make sure that it could go in, but also I like how they designed it because it's a little bit thicker in the middle. So that means I knew that was my point of retention. All I had to do was make it so that it could go far enough so that it doesn't hit this button, okay? But it could go far enough and stop right there. All right, so it's retained at the bottom. So the bottom is too small to go past that point right there. So I was working with this and with this. Now I did want it a little more, you know, at a, what's that called? A chamfered angle, or what's that called in gun terminology? A flared magwell, okay? So if you have a flared magwell, you know how great those are, and it makes it a lot easier to slide this thing. So I was thinking of that, so I made it a little bit bigger than usual, and I imagine people, you know, not getting it perfectly right. So I made it a little wider, and actually I just guessed. Like I tried to measure it and it didn't work, so I just kind of guessed until I got it right. You'll see my ellipsoid was a subtractive one. You can see the ellipsoid's like right here, right? Now let me double click. There it is right there. So in the part design workbench, and you're gonna have to learn all this stuff, you know, whatever program you're using, you need to learn, like, this is a subtractive feature. So it's a shape that it subtracts. And if it doesn't work, it's because you need to learn why it doesn't work. And that's on you. There's a lot of things that are going on. Basically, this is computer assisted design, right? So you got to figure out why it's not working. And like I said, it takes time. And it's worth your time. So learn your tools, learn your program, learn your platform that you're using. So you can see I got the angle just right. Okay. And then it was going to cut out a little bit down here. All right. It was going to cut into there, and I adjusted the hell out of this thing. I got it just right. You can see I have the radius 1, radius 2, and radius 3. So those are like the basic measurements that I took of this. But like I said, I needed it to be a little bit bigger to give people a little space to, you know, fumble around and slide it in. So really the bottom was the most important. And I didn't really get that until I printed a few of these blocks. So I made these blocks in the beginning. Let me show you. Okay, so in the beginning, I just printed blocks, all right? I didn't need to print the whole entire thing. So I suggest that you do that, you know, get rid of whatever you don't need for shapes and start, see this one? This is too high. See that? I need to have this a little bit wider. I needed to push the ellipsoid down further into here to make that work, okay? So either way, you know, it wouldn't go down, okay? It didn't matter. This was clearly too tight. So I tried it again. Oh, and that one was a lot better. It doesn't smack the button on the bottom there. And then I put my hand around it. You can see I filleted it here. I made it round. It allows me to pull it out, okay? And I thought, oh, that's not bad. And that's when I started running with that. So that's when I thought, you know, this is good enough. I can run with that. And I had to adjust the angle just right because it was starting to cut into too much to the front, so it was too thin on the bottom. And it was also cutting into the smartphone space. I did the nose. Now the nose is just a basic, you know, oval shape that I drew with the sketcher. This one right here, okay? Create a slot. So basically you just click on that and you click on the surface that you want it on. I had it, you know, not even attached to the thing because the thing's at an angle. I don't want an angled thing. I want a straight shot so I can see straight through it, and it's just easier to print. You know, I don't need it at an angle. I just wanted it to go straight up and down. It's just, I don't know, makes me sleep better at night. So that's what I did. I made the slot, and that was to save material, but also give it, you know, some character. Chameleons have noses. If it didn't have I printed it without a nose once, and it just looked like that. Okay, so it does matter. All right, moving on. So that's when I had pretty much my completed block. You can see I have, so let's turn off that sketch and turn off that sketch. So you can see this is exactly half of it right there. This is half. I was ready to go, and later on I knew I could just, you know, click these and I could do fillets later. I wanted to mirror that, and the way that I did that was, by the way, always save. In fact, I save each like successful part, like each successful step, like when this block was finished, I saved that document and then I saved as and made a new name. Like I do A, B, C, D, I go through the alphabet. And that way I know where I stand in my progress, and if I need to go back, it's easier to reference, where did something go wrong, or where did I find success. So I do that to try and catalog it, to organize it. So after I saved it with a new name, I continued. Let's see what body. Oh shit, this is a mess, by the way. Like normal CAD people would be losing their mind. So body 2, you can see it's this other side, okay? So let's go and take a look at the details. So in body 2 right here, you can see I imported the base feature, which was that 1/2. So that base feature was the imported entire body that we just completed. Like I said, I can't show you every step. The video would be forever. So you need to go and look at, I really like Mango Jelly's videos. There's some other people's videos that are really good, Adventures in Creation, but I watch a lot of Mango Jelly. He's been cranking out content on it, so definitely check him out. There's my base feature. That's, I imported that and then I mirrored it right here. Okay, so I chose the YZ plane and you can see the YZ plane is right here. All right, but I think I have an offset. Yeah, 140 millimeters. So I knew how long my original block was and I just offset it from, I offset it from that one side negative 140 millimeters, okay? So then it perfectly mirrored, right in the middle. This is just the way I work. I can't get it. Those little things, like getting it right and doing it the right way, that gets in the way of me actually making stuff. So deal with it. I took the 2 halves and I combined them, and I did that with a Boolean feature. Boolean is combining or cutting stuff or subtracting stuff. It's a programming term. Look it up. I selected the base feature and the mirrored, and then I made the Boolean. So that makes a new part with both of those halves. Let's see if it shows. I gotta hide that. Okay, so that's what it did. Okay, it made it into one piece, but it's still, you can see different selectable pieces. Now that can be helpful for, depending on what you wanna do. If you wanna put a feature on one side but not on the other, you still have the different halves. It's useful, but they are together. So I refined the sketch, or I refined the model, because it was in those 2 halves. So what I did was I went in the part bench. These different workbenches are like, they do different things for you. Part design and part, they're similar but different, okay? You're gonna need both. And I'm not gonna go into how they're different or similar, but you could do things in one that you can't do in the other. So I went into here, I selected the Boolean, I went into here and I created a copy as a refined shape. So what that did for me, as you can see, it took the 2 halves, right? And it turned them into a solid shape. So that's what I wanted. Okay, so now I have a perfectly solid shape and I printed it. And I tested it and it turned out great. So then I thought, okay, let's refine it. Let's make it better. So here's body 3. So I started a new body. Okay, I grabbed and dragged that into a new body. And that's what base feature is, okay? It's referring to the other body that I just had down here, okay? So I took that refined Boolean body and I used that as the base feature for body number 3. So that's the starting point. It says, hey, look at this, take this, and we're gonna start working from that as a reference. That's how I wanna explain it to you. So then you can see I did my fillets. I love the fillet feature, okay? In any program, you're gonna love it, okay? So you can see what I did. I selected the existing thing. You see how it was like sharp, right? So I went around and I thought, what should I fillet, round all together at the same time? And the reason that's important is if you fillet something, but you don't fillet something else, it might not work. Like that other fillet that you wanted to do might not work because the way that the program is doing the geometry, it would have been easier and better for the program to do it all at once, okay? And then you're gonna run into some limitations. So one thing can do like, 3 millimeters of a default radius, but the other one can only do, like 2. So you're gonna run into issues, but you're just gonna get used to it, okay? You're gonna get used to the thing telling you no, all right? That's how life works. I went around, I played around, and I said, what can I get away with? What can I do all at once to get these rounded edges that I love so much? and everything just keeps falling down. I went in and I filleted these. You can see these purple default settings have a different color. So if you download FreeCAD and it looks different, don't worry, it's the same thing. I just customized mine. But look, so when I filleted the top here, you can see how much it shaved off. That's a lot. So you need to take that into account. I was fine with it. I was like, whatever, you know, I was just winging it anyway, like I usually do. That's gone. All right. Now you can adjust the radius here, and you can see all the edges that are included. All right. And you can subtract these edges. You can remove them with a minus sign. You can click on other ones and add them. You can do whatever you want, but the default radius, if it gives you an error, it's going to be an error up here. Just relax. Okay. And then maybe, you know, take one of them off and do one first and then try the other ones. Okay. You're going to figure it out. Trust me. It's just all experience, really. All right. So that was the first fillet that I did. Okay. So I did all those edges and it made it look real nice. And now in hindsight, in retrospect, I updated this. I did it a little differently and I was able to do something that I couldn't do because I didn't include this part right here and this part right here. Also, I could have included here. Fillets are very important, fillets and chamfers, okay? So I went back and you could see that it's like, you know, straight right here. It's like flat, all right? It actually cracked because it was a weak point. You know, it's thin right here. I went back and I filleted it a little bit differently and I was able to fillet this inner part right here as well as this inner part right here. So now they're curved. It's a little more curved so that reduces the chances of it snapping. You're learning all kinds of things today. I know this video is going on and on and on and on, but you know what? I might not ever talk about this stuff ever again. Let's keep going. So fillet, where did I fillet after that? And you'll see it gives me errors later and I just ignore them. Pro tip. If you keep making stuff and it gives you errors like after the fact, just you can hit F5, you highlight the part, you hit F5 to recompute, and if it doesn't do it, you just cancel and just keep moving on, all right? Just ignore it. Everything's fine. This fillet, I wanted these, you know, little eye holes, these little eyelets, whatever they're called. I needed those to be a little bit smoother, like I said. In firearms, you'll have the, dang, what was that called? I can't remember. Like I said, I'm not very good at English. This is the fastest I've talked in years. You want a bigger opening. Damn, what was that called? I had brain damage, all right? No joke. So there's that fillet, okay? But look, remember what I was telling you about how the computer has to calculate and make decisions for you? This is one of those decisions. You can see how much it's gonna cut into it with a default radius of 1 millimeter, okay? So that's the radius of that curve is 1 millimeter. So then I rounded off the top. You know, I didn't want them all sharp. You know, if your arm bangs into that thing or your hand clips it, some kid's gonna cry and I'll get sued. All right, so I filleted the top corners there and I was just taking it slow. You know, you can do them all at once or you can do them, you know, one by one. And then I did the bottom ones here. That's what that next fillet is. And then I started to think, you know, this might affect the ability of this to print flat. I'm taking this from a 3D printing perspective, not animation or game perspective. That's my whole angle with the whole thing. I always keep that in mind. Is this gonna print? Can I print this flat without supports? Because that's when it becomes hell. So I was looking at it and I thought, you know, I might have to pocket into it, you know, like shave a little bit off the bottom by just, you know, cutting into it, just nice and flat with a square sketch. Then I started doing the crazy thing. Now, the part that took me the longest to do was getting this little clip-on hole and tongue just right. I'm gonna try and wrap it up because I can't go through and explain all the details of how I did this. Let's just say it was a lot of work and it took, you know, more than a month.